So we've gone over the drip campaigns, how you assign them, where the email templates are, and how you can, if you wish, review the workflow and the kind of the timing of all of them. But as I mentioned, you can customize these things as well. So today I wanted to go over a quick tutorial on how you can create your own workflow rules. So to create the workflow rules, of course, you need to do that in the setup menu. So we'll start by clicking on your name and then going to setup. In the setup menu, basically there's a couple of steps. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to want to develop any email templates that are going to be used in the workflows. Since I don't want to keep you on a video for an inordinate amount of time, what we're going to do is we're going to pretend that we want to redo the open house workflow campaign or drip campaign with some custom workflow that includes some tasks. If you guys remember, to get to the workflow, all we have to do is just click on the little search bar, type in workflow, and we go to workflow rules. And if you recall from the video that looked at the workflows, when we clicked on the open house drip marketing campaign, there were only email alerts. So let's assume for the sake of argument that we want to clone this and create our own workflow rules. So all you have to do is click on this clone button. And what I would recommend is you're going to call it maybe open house drip marketing, and then maybe just put a little dash and put custom, so that way you know that it's something that you've created. And then you'll see, because we cloned it, it's already got the qualifier here for the rule. So the contact drip marketing campaign equals open house campaign. So basically, if you clone the rule, you don't have to worry about the rule logic. If you want to make a completely custom workflow rule, all this stuff is pretty much the same. You just need to, create whatever the trigger is. In this case, the trigger that triggers this is the drip marketing campaign. For custom workflow, I always recommend that you probably do the first one with our support team, and then after that, it's pretty simple. And you'll see today that this isn't rocket science. It's just kind of, mapping it out. So given now that we have our trigger, we'll just click Save and Next. And then it takes us into the rules, or the actions. And so there's two types of actions with any workflow rule. There's the immediate actions, which are things that are going to happen right away. And then there's time-dependent actions. And those time-dependent actions could be anything, and they're based on the timing that you set. So it could be in terms of hours or days, however you want to do it. Let's, for the sake of this campaign tutorial, let's say we were going to develop a drip marketing campaign that immediately sends an email, open house email number 1 to the contact, and then 2 days later sends a task to the agent to follow up with the open house visitor, and then 3 days later sends open house email number 2. And we'll just leave it at that for the sake of keeping the video short. So to add the immediate email alert, we go to the immediate workflow actions, click on add workflow action, and go to new email alert. Now what we're going to do is we're going to want to name this. So let's just call it let's open house email number 1. And then again, we'll just call it custom, just to stick with our theme of wanting to remember that this was a custom thing that we set up. And so then we click on the email template magnifying glass. It brings up again all the folders. So here's the open house ones, and we're going to send email number 1. The next thing is we're going to decide who gets this email. It's not going to be a user in the system. We want to send it to the actual email of our contact or the lead that we got at the open house. So in that case, you're going to click on email field, and you'll see right here it's got the email fields from the contact record. So you've got the primary email and the secondary. You could choose to include both if you wanted. For the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to say we're going to just send it to the primary email. So I click this little arrow here on the add column, and you'll see it moves over here, and now they're a selected recipient. Next, I'll click save, and what you'll see is now we have an immediate workflow action that they're going to get open house email number 1. So next, the idea that we had was 2 days into this, the system's going to send a task to the agent to follow up. So we'll click on Add Time Trigger in the, here, I did that a little quick, I'm sorry. We'll go back here. So we're going to click under the time-dependent workflow actions, Add Time Trigger. And in this case, 2 days after the rule trigger date. So we'll just change that to 2 and click Save. And you'll see now we have a little bucket here. And so we can add multiple actions within this little bucket. So in this case, we want a task. We want a task to go to the agent to remind them to follow up. So you can click on the Assign To. Now, if it's only you and it's only ever going to be you, you could just choose your name. But there's also a couple of other things you could do. And if you're thinking long-term, what I might suggest is you click on Owner. And then what you could do is choose Contact Owner. Now what this is going to do is if you have teammates or you bring on extra people, maybe even you hire a buyer representative, let's say. If you have your name in the Assign To in the beginning, you're going to be receiving 100% of all the tasks and follow-up reminders. So Contact Owner is usually your best way to hedge your bet. So that way, at a future date, you don't have to go through and change all these things. It'll be very simple. The next thing you'll do is you'll set your subject. For the sake of argument, let's just say, we'll just call it phone call follow-up number 1. Obviously, you're going to want to probably put something descriptive. And then you could put, whatever text in here for a description of what needs done that you want. We've got the due date. Now, the best practice, honestly, is just to put it on rule trigger date, and then don't use any plus any days. You can do that if you want to nest multiple actions, but law of averages says that you're going to probably get your timings all off. So your best bet is just to create another time-based trigger with a different day. So just always, for the sake of argument, just say rule trigger date. I like to click the little Notify Assignee button. That means basically that whoever this task is assigned to is going to get an email saying, hey, you have a task. Just a nice, nice thing, kind of a stopgap measure, just in case maybe I'm out in the field and I haven't logged into the CRM today. So getting that notification is always nice. Lastly, you can set a priority if you want. So since this is an open house lead, and this is the first phone call follow-up, let's just put it high priority. So now we'll click Save. And you'll see we've got our task trigger in here. Lastly, if I wanted, to add one more trigger and 3 days later send email number 2, all I have to do is click the Add Time Trigger button. And we'll say 3 days. And then I would just basically go through the exact same process as when I set that immediate email, but I'm going to do it down here in the 3 days bucket. And so I'll just go new email alert. And then at this point, it's the same window as before. So we could say this open house email number 2, custom. I'll go find my email number 2. In this case, it's right here. I want to send it to an email field. I want to send it to the primary contact, their email address, and then I'll click Save. So now you can see we've got a pretty short workflow because it's only going to span 3 days, but you get the idea. You can keep on adding and nesting different tasks. Let's assume that this was exactly how we wanted it. Then what we would do is we would click Done. And the last step is we just activate our rule. Now, if you're customizing one of the original workflow drip campaigns that we have set in, so like for instance, in this case we're customizing the open house one. What I would recommend is, obviously you want to activate it, and so then it'll be active. But you need to disable the other campaign. So, and that's one of the reasons for having that word custom in here. So we know here's the original open house drip campaign. here's the open house drip marketing campaign custom. So for the old one, you want to deactivate it. Otherwise, if you forget to deactivate that, you're going to have multiple, basically you'll have two campaigns going for the same person at the same time, and clearly you don't want that. So that's how the workflow rules work. Again, if you guys have a very custom drip campaign or some kind of workflow scheme that you want to use to automate some of your business, I definitely recommend first always starting on paper. Second, once you have that mapped out on paper, contact our support. Send an email to support@status5.com. Let them know what you're thinking about. They'll set up a live tutorial where you can actually go through and build it on the screen with them. And they'll answer any questions or help you out, avoiding any pitfalls the first time, just in case, you might have some confusion or not be quite sure. But like I said, and you just saw it, it's pretty easy to do this. The trick is really just planning ahead and figuring out what the campaign is going to be in the first place.